I believe that right now somebody is feeling a stirring, a pull, a tug deep down in their soul. You've been restless, unsettled, uneasy, not because something is wrong, but because God is calling you higher. You've been feeling a shift, and you don't know how to explain it. You've been going through things that don't make sense. You've been wondering why things don't feel the same, why certain people are drifting away, why doors that once opened so easily now seem shut. But let me tell you something. God does not call us to stay in the same place forever. When God has a higher purpose for your life, He begins to shake things up. And if you're wondering whether God is calling you, let me give you some signs that He's pulling you to something greater. First, you feel an uneasiness in your spirit. You can't quite put your finger on it, but you just don't feel comfortable where you are anymore. The job you used to love doesn't satisfy you. The people you used to be around don't inspire you. The places you used to go don't excite you. That's because when God is calling you higher, He starts to stir your spirit. He makes you uncomfortable with what used to be normal. That's His way of preparing you for what's next. Second, opportunities start closing. Now this one is hard because we've been taught to believe that closed doors are a bad thing. But what if I told you that closed doors are just as much a blessing as open ones? Sometimes God has to shut things down to get your attention. He will allow relationships to end, jobs to dry up, and certain paths to be blocked because if He didn't, you'd never move. Some of you are crying over what you lost. But what if I told you that you didn't lose anything? God was just repositioning you. The third sign is that your circle starts changing. People you used to be close to don't feel as close anymore. Conversations feel forced. The connection isn't the same. That's because not everyone can go where God is taking you. When He is elevating you, He removes certain people from your life. Some of them won't understand your calling. Some will try to hold you back. Some were only meant for one season, and when the season is over, you have to let them go. Fourth, your passion starts shifting. What used to excite you doesn't anymore. You start feeling drawn to different things. Maybe you had a love for one thing, but now your heart is leading you in another direction. That's because when God calls you, He also changes your desires. He will give you a hunger for something new, a passion for something greater. Pay attention to what's stirring inside of you. Fifth, you start feeling unqualified. Oh, this is a big one. Some of you feel the call, but you're afraid because you don't think you're ready. You don't think you're good enough. You're looking at your past, your mistakes, your weaknesses, and you're telling God, I can't do this. But let me remind you, God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Moses had a speech problem, but God called him to be a leader. David was a shepherd, but God made him a king. Esther was an orphan, but God used her to save a nation. If God is calling you, He will equip you. Sixth, your prayers change. You start praying different prayers. You stop asking for small things and start asking for clarity, wisdom, and direction. You start praying, God, what do you want me to do? Instead of God, give me what I want. You start surrendering more. Your spirit begins to crave deeper conversations with Him. That's because when God calls you higher, He draws you closer. You can't fulfill a higher purpose without a deeper connection. Seventh, you start feeling a divine dissatisfaction. Nothing feels fulfilling. The things that once made you happy feel empty. You can have all the success in the world, but something still feels missing. That's because there is a higher calling over your life, and earthly things will never be enough. Only walking in God's purpose will give you true satisfaction. Eighth, attacks increase. Oh, I need you to hear me on this. When you are about to step into something great, the enemy will try to stop you. He will send distractions. He will try to discourage you. He will make you doubt yourself. You will face battles you didn't expect. But let me tell you something. The enemy only attacks what he fears. If the attacks are increasing, that means your purpose is big. Don't let the opposition stop you. That's just proof that you're on the right path. Ninth, confirmations start coming from everywhere. God will send signs. A sermon will speak directly to your situation. A stranger will say something that answers your prayer. You'll keep hearing the same message over and over. That's not a coincidence. That's God confirming His word. He will make sure you know that it's Him calling you. And lastly, you feel a deep sense of purpose, even if you don't fully understand it yet. You just know you're supposed to do something more. You can't shake the feeling that you were made for something greater. That's because you were. God does not create anything without purpose. And if you are still breathing, that means He's not done with you yet. You are here for a reason. You were chosen for a purpose. You are not a mistake. Your life is not random. God has something specific that only you can do. So my brothers and sisters, I came to tell you today, if you've been feeling this, if you've been sensing a shift, if you've been going through some things that don't make sense, don't be afraid. God is calling you higher. It won't always be easy. It won't always make sense. But I promise you, it will be worth it. Don't resist the shift. Don't fight the process. Trust that where God is taking you is greater than anything you're leaving behind. If you know deep in your heart that God is calling you, say yes. Step out in faith. Move forward even if you don't have all the answers. Because when you say yes to God, He will open doors you never imagined. He will connect you to the right people. He will provide what you need. He will make a way where there is no way. Brethren, let me take you a little deeper. Because after you realize that God is calling you higher, after you recognize the signs, after you feel the pull, there is something that most people don't talk about, and that is the importance of waiting on God. Because hear me, just because you know your purpose, just because you feel the calling, just because God showed you the vision, doesn't mean it will happen overnight. See, we live in a world that is fast. We want everything quick. We want instant success, instant results, instant breakthrough. But God is not a microwave God. He is a God of process. He is a God of timing. And sometimes before He takes you into what He promised, He makes you wait. Oh, I know somebody doesn't want to hear this. I know somebody is tired of waiting. I know somebody is frustrated because it feels like nothing is happening. But let me tell you something. Waiting on God is not wasted time. Waiting is where God prepares you. Waiting is where He strengthens you. Waiting is where He teaches you to trust Him. And if you don't understand the purpose of waiting, you will miss what God is trying to do in you before He moves through you. Let me show you why waiting is so important. First, waiting teaches you dependence on God. See, when you are in a waiting season, you realize that you can't make things happen on your own. You realize that no amount of effort, no amount of networking, no amount of trying to force things will make it move faster. And that's when you learn to trust God completely. That's when you learn to pray differently. That's when you stop saying, God, do it now, and start saying, God, do it in your time. That's when you surrender. And surrender is the key to walking in your purpose. Because as long as you are trying to control the timing, you are not fully trusting God. Second, waiting develops your character. Oh, I need you to hear me, because there are things you are praying for that you are not ready for. There are places God is taking you that your character has to be strong enough to handle. God is not just trying to bless you, He's trying to build you. He's not just trying to open doors, He's trying to make sure you can stay in the room once you walk through them. Because too many people get to their blessing and lose it because they weren't ready. Too many people step into their calling and crumble because they didn't let God prepare them. Waiting is where God strengthens you, humbles you, matures you, and makes sure that when the blessing comes, you can handle it. Third, waiting protects you from premature success. Let me say that again. Waiting protects you from getting something before you are ready, because a blessing too soon can feel like a curse. Some of you are asking God for things that would crush you if He gave them to you right now. Some of you are praying for elevation, but if God lifted you up too soon, the weight of it would break you. Some of you want doors to open, but if they opened right now, you wouldn't have the wisdom to walk through them correctly. That's why God makes you wait, because He loves you too much to let you receive something that would destroy you. Fourth, waiting tests your faith. See, it's easy to trust God when things are moving fast. It's easy to have faith when you see results. But can you still believe when nothing is happening? Can you still trust Him when the promise seems far away? Can you still walk in obedience when you don't see progress? That's the real test. Because if you can have faith in the waiting, then nothing can shake you when the blessing comes. Fifth, waiting separates the real from the fake. Oh, let me help somebody. See, when you are in a waiting season, not everybody's going to stick around. Not everybody's going to believe in your vision. Not everybody's going to support you when things are moving slow. Some people will walk away, some people will doubt you, some people will tell you to give up. And that's exactly what God wants. Because when He blesses you, He doesn't want people around you who only showed up for the blessing. He wants people who were there through the process. Waiting exposes who is really for you. 6. Waiting allows God to align everything perfectly. See, sometimes it's not just about you being ready. Sometimes it's about everything else being in place. God is not just preparing you, He's preparing the opportunity. He's aligning the right people. He's setting up the right conditions. And if He moves too soon, you might walk into something that is not fully developed yet. That's why timing is everything. That's why you have to trust that even when it seems like nothing is happening, God is working behind the scenes. 7th, waiting increases your gratitude. Oh, when you have to wait for something, you appreciate it more. When you finally step into the promise, you don't take it for granted. When God finally opens the door, you don't walk through it casually because you remember the struggle. You remember the process. You remember the late nights of praying, the moments of wondering if it would ever happen. And when you finally get there, you worship differently. You praise differently. You testify differently. So my brothers and sisters, if you are in a waiting season, don't get discouraged. Don't think that God has forgotten about you. Don't think that He's not working. Because everything He does is intentional. He is preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. And the waiting is a part of the process. So what do you do while you wait? You stay faithful. You keep praying. You keep working. You keep preparing. Because when God does move, He's going to do it suddenly. He's going to do it quickly. And you need to be ready. Some of you are about to walk into something that you've been waiting on for years. Some of you are on the edge of your breakthrough. Some of you are about to see everything come together. But you can't give up now. You can't lose faith now. Because when God's timing finally aligns, when He finally says, now is the time, nothing can stop it. So hold on, stay strong, keep trusting, because your waiting is not in vain. Your waiting is your preparation. Your waiting is your training ground. And when God finally moves, you will look back and understand why He made you wait. And you will thank Him for it. Because what He has for you is worth every second of the wait.